Now, of course, once again, keeping watch on everything going on at the Capitol for us this session, political reporters Marianne Goodland and Blair Miller of the denverchannel.com. So thank you both for being here. But first, let's start about the changes. The session just started. We're already seeing two people who are leaving, Lois Court and Susan Beckman, yes. Beckman, thank you.
Susan resigned on Friday morning. She is taking a job with the Trump administration. We don't know exactly what that job is, but we believe it's a regional director at an office here in Denver, and she said she wasn't going far away. Susan had a very tough re-election in 2018. She won her seat by 0.5%. So this may be as much a political calculation for her future in the House, and the Democrats have made her House seat a top target. The other person, of course, is Lois Court, who announced that she has Guillain-Barré, an autoimmune disorder. Her last day officially was on Thursday, and Chris Hansen, who is a member of the House, was elected by a vacancy committee Thursday night to replace her. So now they'll need somebody to replace Chris Hansen.
So what does this mean moving forward with what is happening at the state legislature, Blair?
Well, I mean, in the House, it doesn't really make too much of a difference with the makeup there. I mean, we're going to get another Republican in for Beckman's seat and another Democrat in Hansen's seat. And Hansen had already been kind of running for, the Senate seat in November anyway. So not too surprising. He got about 75% of the vote from the vacancy committee. As far as the makeup, doesn't make too much of a difference. I think the Senate will be happy to have that seat filled quickly, since their majority is going to be ever tightening, especially with Brittany Pedersen going on maternity leave seemingly any time now.
There is one other thing, though, that's really interesting, and the legislature in this 2019-20 session has made a very big deal out of the fact that they had women majority in the House. At one point, there were 35 women in the House. They're down to 32 now, which means women no longer hold a majority in the House.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about the state of the state. Marianne, you said that there's been a lot of rumbling within the legislature about the state of the state. There have been protests. What's happening? What's the issue?
During the state of the state that took place about 10 days ago, there were protesters who disrupted the speech. They were
inside and
outside the building. 38 people were arrested.
Right.
And the complaint from Representative Jonathan Singer, who took to the floor this week to talk about this, was that these people were all held without charges, and they still haven't been charged. And we were told by Denver police during the time that they were making these arrests that they were going to be looking at trespassing, disruption of a public event, those kinds of things. And what Singer got up and told the House was he was going to hold meetings between the protesters, Denver police, and the state Capitol sergeants and the state patrol to have everybody sit down in a room and talk about this. And he said, I'll do this every week until everybody gets their voices heard. And those protests have caused a little bit of angst within the building, because these were people in the past who had backed the governor. These were people who were sort of aligned with the governor long before he was governor, of course. And now they've turned and kind of turned on him and said that he's not doing enough to ban fracking, which was what the heart of this protest was about.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's talk about some of the other things that we'll be seeing coming up, Blair.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I think the death penalty that we, touched on just before this is going to be probably one of the big bills early on in the session. I think we've talked about, this reinsurance stuff and some of the other stuff that's probably going to be coming up later on. Have a few bills out there that are gotten some attention, just mostly Republican filed bills that aren't going to go anywhere, but, typical, transgender related bills,
right.
Family values type bills. And then we've had some Democrat bills that have gotten a lot of talk too. The marijuana bill that would basically, allow for people to use marijuana off the job
on their own time,
and not get
right.
in trouble for that. And we're still getting in the early part of the session where we have 250 bills introduced, but I think they address smaller things. We don't have the huge bills out yet.
We're waiting for some action yet. With about 60 seconds left, you wanted to talk about Department of Corrections and a bill associated with the DOC.
The Department of Corrections has gotten themselves into kind of a mess here. There's a private prison that's closing in Colorado Springs, and in the last couple of days, they went to the Joint Budget Committee, the Corrections Department did, to say we need money in order to figure out what to do with these prisons. But in their initial paperwork to the Joint Budget Committee, they said we're in negative territory with the number of beds that we have available. We don't have a place to put these 642 inmates. And the prison that they want to put them into, or the prison that they want to use, and they wouldn't put these prisoners in there, isn't open and isn't going to be ready to open until May. That's 2 months after this prison closes in Colorado Springs.
So this has been something they've been talking about for a while now, of worrying about, and then we found out a couple of weeks ago that Geo Group was pulling out, and so now Marianne, it's we're kind of at the a real tough point here for lawmakers.
It is, and there's a real big question about just how much it's going to cost the state just to deal with this this situation. The governor had asked, and the governor had asked for money to start closing private prisons and to start moving people. And I believe his request was like $9 million in this upcoming year's budget. But I'm hearing numbers that are in the $40 million plus range to deal with the closure of this prison in Colorado Springs.
It's a big difference. All right, we'll be hearing more about that, I'm sure, in the upcoming weeks. Marianne Goodland, Blair Miller, thank you both.
Thank you.
Be right back.
That's probably going to end up